Hello, Dr. Maiza. We are from Group 10 and today we are going to talk about the known status of liver fluke present in Malaysia and how prevalent is liver fluke and which part of Malaysia is affected. So for information, liver fluke is actually a parasite of liver and is a group of trematode. So moving on, these are my group members. There are 11 of us. So before going into the presentation in more detail, I'll just explain what is actually the prevalence and fasciolasis mean. So prevalence in the common layman term is actually degree to which something is common. But for us, the prevalence we're talking about today is actually the proportion of the particular animal population where they are affected by this disease. So in our presentation, we are talking about the liver fluke prevalence. And what is fasciolasis? So fasciolasis can relate to the name of the parasite species, which is Fasciola hepatica or Fasciola gigantica. So fasciolasis is actually the disease or infection affected by these two species. So now I'll be giving to my next presenter to continue with today's presentation.
Hello, Doctor. So I'll continue. I'll continue with the introductory part for this presentation. It's regarding seal prevalence in Malaysia. Okay, so we all have learned that this parasite is a worldwide distribution. It means that it infects most part of the world, and it is also known as flukes, and it infects mostly ruminants and sheep. And it also found in prevalence in humans too. And it can reduce the productivity of animal, causing reduced meat quantity and cause the animals to be susceptible to diseases. So mostly it's Fasciola gigantica, and some of the flukes that can be found also Parasito. However, this Parasito is an intestinal fluke. So some of the economic losses due to this disease or fasciolasis is that the cost of antihelmintic, drenches, or basically the drugs to fight against these diseases, losses in production due to mortality of the animal infected with this disease, and reduction in meat, milk, and wool production. For in milk specifically is for grazing dairy cattle, whereby they tend to eat grasses that have the L3, the Metasaccharida, which is the infective stage of this fluke. So when they ingest them, so they will more likely to be infected and they produce less milk, so it can cause the economic losses. And lastly, it's reduction in growth rate, fertility, and also drug power. Okay, so this is the distribution of fasciolasis in Malaysia. As we can see, there are high prevalence in Sabah and also in most of the part of the peninsular Malaysia, except it less prevalence in Kelantan and also Sarawak. Okay, so what I can conclude from this table is that this shows the disease or fasciolasis that occurring in Malaysia, mainly infected cattle and buffalo, and less prevalence in goats and also pigs. So as we can see from this percentage, from 1971 and from mainly to 1980s, so it is more prevalence, the percentage is higher in cattle and buffalo, and then goats, and then pigs. And most part that is being infected or can be found as fasciolasis is mainly in abattoirs in Selangor, Perak, and also parts of Terengganu. Okay, so this disease is prevalent in cattle and buffalo. Why? Because cattle are less choosy in eating. So when they grazes, they tend to eat any grasses that they want, and they tend to ingest this infective stage of flukes. For goats, they are selective in choosing their grasses, so that's why they are less susceptible to these diseases. And for buffalo, they tend to wallow, so that's how the roots of infestation can be. And thank you. I'll pass to the next presenter.
Alright, for my part, I'll be discussing the known status of liver flukes presence and the prevalence of fasciolasis in Malaysia. Okay, so as we heard from the presenter before, fasciola is actually found within most of the states in Malaysia. And starting from the top, we will discuss about the northern states. So the current study that we've obtained was actually from Bukit Tengah Regional Veterinary Laboratory, RVL, which received samples from Kedah, Penang, and Perlis. Okay, so one of the factors that contributed to the higher prevalence in this area, the northern states, is actually because they are the rice bowl of the country, and this means that actually these states actually cultivate paddy and have lots of stagnant water areas in which the limnia is actually, the snail thrives and acts as the intermediate host of fasciolaces. And from this study, there was a high prevalence of bovine fasciolaces at 5.5%, infecting about 19 of 342 samples collected. Okay, next we'll be talking about Perak. Okay, a study in Ipoh, Perak abattoirs found fasciolaces in slaughtered large ruminants. Okay, similarly to before, the infection transmission via ingestion contaminated vegetation with Metacicaria attached and drinking untreated water. Okay, so similarly in this case, there is a presence of water, which is actually part of the epidemiology of the environment, which contributes to the fasciolaces. And in the results, the liver samples from the KK cattle and Murah were collected. About 7.5 of all the animals were positive with fasciolaces in Perak, of which 7.46 or 5 out of 67 were cattle, and 7.69, 1 out of 13 were buffalo. And in this study, they found Fasciola gigantica in the species. And the Fasciola gigantica species were present in these animals. So another interesting thing about this is that the animals involved are actually cattle and buffalo, both of which are beef-bred animals, and they are extensively bred. Okay, so this also is an epidemiological factor. Following on, about Terengganu. In Terengganu, a study was conducted in Kuala Terengganu from December 2014 to March 2015, in which the results showed a prevalence of liver fluke infection in buffalo, which was up to 64%, while in cattle, only 9%. So this, the factors that contributed to the high fasciolosis in the buffaloes is actually because the behavior of these animals, in which they wallow in stagnant pools and swampy areas, which are exposed to the Metacicaria. So because they are so exposed to the Metacicaria, there's a high chance of them ingesting it and becoming infected. And because it's a watery, swampy area, the presence of intermediate host radic rubiginosa was also present. I'll pass it to the next.
Okay, so now we're moving on to Sabah. So in Sabah, on 31st May of 2016, there are 3 cases of fasciolosis reported among humans in Tuaran, Sabah. So the 82 samples were taken and 6 showed positive, 6 were shown positive in Kampung Kauluan and Kampung Raun. So in Kampung Kauluan, there are 5 positive samples of parasites. So 1 hookworms, 2 Ascaris lubricoides, and 2 Fasciola species. In Kampung Raun, there are 1 positive of Fasciola species. Okay. Furthermore, they also take samples from ruminants such as goats and also buffaloes. And in goats, they found 29 positive for Parasito in Kampung Penimbawan, and also in buffalo, there are 5 positive for Parasito and 7 were negative. So they also take total of 13 snail from the sample taken from drainage outlet in Kampung Sungai Gamit. So all of the snails were positive for Limnia species. So Limnia species act as an intermediate host for the Fasciola. However, it is negative for the Fasciola species of the snails that were taken for the sample. So the infection was likely from the environment of same source. However, it cannot be determined in view of all samples were negative for Fasciola species, and further investigation were taken. Okay, next we move to the conclusion. Okay, so liver flukes, it have a wide distribution over the peninsula and west of Malaysia, such as like the past presenters have present in Sabah, in Kedah, Terengganu, and also Perak. So fasciolosis is very much prevalent and are economically important to livestock industry. And for example, like buffalo and cattle, which is
the more prevalent species for having fasciolosis. And fasciolosis also is a zoonotic disease, as it also can affect humans. Okay. So for how to prevent fasciolosis, we can do detection, control, and treatment, which is crucial in order to prevent the spread of the disease. Okay, so that's all from us. Thank you.